Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the floor. On this particular issue, Mr. Speaker, I rise as the Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs to speak in response to some of the issues raised, as well as in support of the motion that is being tabled that Parliament ratifies the 2005 agreement establishing the Pacific Islands Forum. This is evident through our commitment in our national budget for this financial year and the years before. I will spare no effort, Mr. Speaker, to continue to work with my colleague leaders and ensure that these regional organizations continue to serve their purpose. It is also important to say that with these commitments, regional organizations also have standards and expectations that they need to meet. They need to be accountable. Failing this, Mr. Speaker, we will also not shy away from setting the record straight and ensure that they are made accountable. Why should it not be, Mr. Speaker? My government functions on the principles of good governance, as I emphasized yesterday in responding to Honorable Mbulunauda and Honorable Ngerengere Tambua, and of course, the leader of NFP. Mr. Speaker, the Pacific Islands Forum is the premier political regional body in the region, and we have just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Pacific Islands Forum early this month, with the theme, Security and Prosperity in Unity. None of them mentioned this in all their irrelevant statements. In looking at the journey of the forum over the last 50 years, Mr. Speaker, there is much that the region has achieved together, including collective action on decolonization, nuclear disarmament, sustainable oceans management, and of course our push for the greater climate action. In view of this achievement, I recognize the important juncture in which Fiji is taking up the chairmanship of the Pacific Islands Forum. A key focus of my tenure as chair will therefore be to restore our regional solidarity, which is very important, and rebuild trust and confidence in our relationship as a forum family. I intend to do just that, Mr. Speaker. And most assuring, Mr. Speaker, was the support of the President of the United States of America, first time ever, who addressed the forum for the first time since its establishment on my invitation. This is the level of commitment that we are talking about in our regional and international collaboration. Pacific leaders have entrusted me with the responsibility to lead the political dialogue process to resolve the current impasse in the region. I am pleased that the political dialogue process that Fiji proposed has been approved by all Pacific countries, and I'm fully committed to have ongoing dialogue with our Micronesian family to nurture understanding and find an amicable resolution. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding our regional political challenges, our long-term aspirations and vision on where we are headed as a region, and we will need to remain firmly on our horizon, I'm also pleased that during Fiji's chairmanship, the region will be considering and adopting the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. This is the first for the Pacific Islands Forum. None of them mentioned this. The 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent will personify our ambitions for a sustainable and inclusive future for all Pacific people, where no one will be left behind. It will be our shared vision. It will uphold the cultural, economic, and strategic aspirations of all peoples and states across our Blue Pacific continent. Fiji is leading this work. We are leading this work with Vanuatu, and we intend to approve this strategy when the Pacific Forum leaders meet in Fiji in early 2022. Mr. Speaker, connected to this is the quality and the type of Pacific regionalism required to address our current and emerging challenges. In looking at the changing priorities, geopolitical dynamics, and competing interests in the region, Fiji proposed in Tuvalu in 2019 that there be a review of the regional architecture. This was based on the need for a regional architecture that is fit for purpose, so that we are able to achieve our sustainable development goals. I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, that this proposal was approved by leaders in 2019, and this work is now ongoing. Again, none of them knows this, none of them understood this. All they're speaking on is relevant statements. The review of the regional architecture, Mr. Speaker, will go hand in hand with the development of the 2050 strategy and will be the defining aspect of the 2050 strategy. This review will address all the issues raised today regarding our regional institutions. It will ensure that we have a regional architecture that is fit for purpose, responsive to its members, relevant, and works for the interests of our Pacific people. I will also add, Mr. Speaker, here that within the regional architecture, we see the role of the Pacific Islands Development Forum being complementary to the Pacific Islands Forum, as it brings a unique format to the region with the inclusion of the private sector and the civil society organization in its fold. The Pacific Island Forum doesn't have this. Mr. Speaker, collective action by sharing sovereignty has never been easy. As we look to the future, we see great potential for improved collaboration and cooperation in the Pacific region, a region that has supported Fiji in our global leadership achievements, and a region which Fiji has a duty of care as the hub. We see great opportunities for development and innovation. I see the commitment by Pacific leaders for collective action. I've heard the commitment to solidarity and unity and to our Pacific values at our leaders' retreat 2 weeks ago. This is what makes us unique as a Pacific. This is our strength. It is what I, as chair of the Pacific Islands Forum, will rely on to solve our differences, build trust, and reaffirm our collective commitment for a better Pacific for all. I remain confident, Mr. Speaker. I remain confident that as always, Mr. Speaker, that as always, Fiji will do its part to emphasize unity and solidarity in the region and to ensure that we remain committed to the goals and purpose of the Pacific Islands Forum. Mr. Speaker, sir, lastly, as a founding member, host to Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat and chair of the Pacific Islands Forum, Fiji's ratification of this agreement is an important step forward in promoting regional solidarity and unity. I thank the chair. I thank the chair and members of the Standing Committee for Foreign Affairs and Defence for their work and fully support their recommendation that Parliament ratifies the 2005 agreement establishing the Pacific Islands Forum. But before I sit down, before I take my seat, Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to make a couple of comments on comments that have been made by members of the opposition who have been saying irrelevant statements here. Honorable Bainimarama, Honorable Kepa, who has disappeared from, here she is. Honorable Bainimarama, Honorable Kepa have been talking about the roving ambassador. We have a roving ambassador. The post of a roving ambassador, still exists in the ministry. Given our chairmanship of the Pacific Islands Forum, we have one of the most respected persons in the Pacific and former Minister for Foreign Affairs. Ratu Inoki Kumbombola is my special envoy for the Pacific Islands Forum. This is in line with the government's commitment to the region, and he has been working non-stop since we took over, even before we took over the chairmanship. They don't know that. Honorable Nawekula has asked why has it taken long for Fiji to ratify. Fiji was suspended from the forum, a decision the Pacific regretted. This is something that through our leadership we will not allow any other country to go through. Hence our commitment to resolve the impasse facing the region now. Fiji just fully joined the forum in 2019 in the leaders' meeting in Tuvalu. We began the ratification process after rejoining the forum. This is the reason why we are here today, debating this motion. Mr. Speaker, It was unfortunate that it has taken us long to ratify this agreement, but it was outside of our control. I hope. I've just explained that to Mr. Nawekula. It went through this year and went out the other year. I hope Honorable Nawekula and Honorable Tikundundua understand this process. USP and regionalism, Mr. Speaker, even though we are committed to the operation of regional organizations, we also need to keep them accountable. Mr. Speaker, and members of that side understand this. They know this. They are all ducking under the table. They don't want to face what's in front of them. We will not shy away from keeping regional organizations accountable. It is a position that we have always maintained in regional discussions, and we will continue to make. We all know, Mr. Speaker, why we didn't have the election, as everybody been harping about, why we didn't have the election in 2009. We all know why. Here, this is why. Remember this? Remember this, the one that was on your table the first day you were here.
Order.
Honorable Kappa. Remember this? The first day it was on your table, the first day you came in. That was,
Order.
that was your remark. That was your comment. That you haven't seen this before. Honorable Pio Tikundondo on regional dialogue, Mr. Speaker, it is important for everyone to know that Fiji is now leading the Talanoa on resolving the impasse in the region. I have had the pleasure of meeting all the Pacific Island leaders 2 weeks ago. I note that regionalism has not been excellent over the years. It continues to be a challenge. But I can confirm that with everyone, that Fiji's chairmanship in the forum will bring about the change the region deserves. We will try and reset the regional compass. Not Pio Tikundondo's compass. At least that's my commitment. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Tusawau mentioned the Pacific Way. Mr. Speaker, as we celebrate 50 years anniversary of the Pacific Islands Forum, it is clear we have come a long way. At the same time, we have also realized the many challenges that we have had at then. These challenges not only relate to our sustainable development, but more so our solidarity as a group. The Pacific Way is what we have now have in place in the political dialogue to resolve the issues we have at hand. This remains a value and principle of our leadership in the region. The Pacific Way, Mr. Speaker, will continue to be a means of regional engagement and cooperation. This is the commitment of my government. Mr. Speaker, on the duty of care to other Pacific Island states, in fact, this has always been a commitment of my government. This is one of the reasons why we established the PIDF. We realized that even though we were suspended from the PIF, the Pacific countries still depended on us. We therefore established the PIDF as a medium to channel our assistance and assist other countries. In addition, Mr. Speaker, this is the reason why we established a new division of the roving ambassador in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are development partners to countries in the region, Mr. Speaker. We have many memorandum of understanding with Pacific Small Island Developing State and have been assisting them, and we will continue to do this, Mr. Speaker, and I'm confident to see this now. And as I said, the PIDF has civil society participation, which PIF didn't have. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honourable Prime Minister for his contribution to the debate. We have now the last speaker before the right of reply, the Leader of the House, Minister Fu. Bench, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I